Welcome! Today, I'll explore how feminist, post-colonial, and post-structuralist lenses are essential to critically analyze the women, peace, and security agenda. These perspectives challenge dominant frameworks and are crucial to identify new directions for the agenda. The adoption of UN-SCR 1325 in the year 2000 marked a historic moment, recognizing women's roles in peace and security. However, it also laid the groundwork for an agenda that would later reveal significant limitations. Initially, the agenda aimed to integrate women into peacebuilding. However, its implementation often has reinforced traditional state-centric approaches, sidelining more transformative understandings of peace and conflict. With over 100 national action plans, WPS has become a global norm. Yet, this widespread adoption often masks superficial implementation, a limited capacity to challenge entrenched power structures, and a lack of critical engagement with its foundational assumptions. Scholars have increasingly interrogated the WPS agenda, assessing its impact and theoretical underpinnings. This critical engagement underscores a need for deeper, more critical analytical tools. Securitization theory, particularly the Copenhagen school, has offered a widely used framework to understand how issues become framed as security threats. This theory has been applied to WPS. Central to this theory are speech acts, statements where elite actors define existential threats and justify emergency measures to an acquiescent audience. But who gets to speak and whose security is prioritized remains deeply political and often exclusionary. Power dynamics shape securitization, often sidelining marginalized voices. This reinforces dominant narratives and limits transformative possibilities. It's state-centric and often blind to the gendered and colonial dimensions of security. Despite its flaws, securitization theory helps us see how gender, discourse, and power intersect in security practices. But we must go beyond its classical formulations. Over 2 decades, WPS has reproduced male-dominated, militarized, and state-centric logics that marginalize alternative visions of security. The prevention pillar illustrates this paradox. Instead of desecuritizing threats, it often reinforces militarized responses, undermining its own transformative potential. Politicization, or trying to bring security issues back in the realm of deliberative political processes, doesn't always lead to desecuritization. In fact, it can deepen securitization, especially when framed through dominant state-centric discourses. Thus, WPS paradoxically reinforces the very logics it seeks to challenge. Prevention becomes a tool of control, not liberation, especially for women in conflict zones. Feminist scholars argue that securitizing women's issues can backfire, compounding threats rather than alleviating them. Their critiques are vital to rethinking WPS and the lenses we use to analyze it. Post-colonial perspectives expose how WPS reproduces colonial hierarchies. They emphasize structural violence and challenge the dominance of Western, militarized frameworks. Post-structuralist thought reveals the fluidity of security. It questions fixed meanings and highlights how language and power shape what we consider secure or threats. Integrating feminist, post-colonial, and post-structuralist insights may transform how we theorize security discourses, policies, and practices. Future research must embrace these critical perspectives. Only then can we fully grasp the complexities of security and produce analyses that may inform radical transformations of security policies and practices. Reimagining security means rethinking how it's defined, practiced, and measured. This is an academic imperative, but also a political and ethical one. In conclusion, classical securitization theory reveals the limits of traditional or mainstream IR thinking to analyze dynamic security policies and practices like WPS. To move forward, we must apply feminist, post-colonial, and post-structuralist lenses to radically transform our understanding of security. Thank you for your attention. I welcome your questions and reflections on how we can collectively reimagine security through critical, inclusive, and transformative lenses.